My dad started this business in 1994. Initially, he had 3 departments. And in November last year, he took out one department, which is the hearing department, and we rebranded it into Ophelia Hearing Specialist. What I enjoy most about this job is to see the delighted faces and the joy when people get to hear again. That is the greatest joy I get.
Sex education starts from as early as when you tell your children, this is your eyes, this is your nose, this is your mouth. You also start with proper names for your body parts. That's how early it starts. So at what age do you start teaching your kids, this is your eyes and nose and mouth? As soon as they can speak, right? The minute they know how to say their first word and things like that, you would teach them. That is how early we should start sex education. So we have to be also aware that sex education is a huge umbrella. And whenever people talk about sex education, they always immediately think about ovum, sperm penetration, intercourse, pregnancy, bam, there you go. It's not. It's way earlier. It's way earlier. So what, if you want to tell your child this is your pee-pee place, make sure that you've got a proper name and it's not flower or cookie. Have a dedicated name for private parts as early as 1, 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, good afternoon. I just wanted to check I wasn't muted. This is Malar from Hearts&Minds again, and I'm sure you are as excited about sex education as I am. So I'm going to bring all the way from KK Ophelia Domingo. I met Ophelia at Clubhouse, or rather, I heard her speak at Clubhouse, and she's just amazing. I love her passion and purpose. So I'm very grateful she said yes. So let's bring her on and ask her all the questions we've always wanted to ask about sex. All right, let's bring Ophelia on.
Hi. It's good to see you, Malar.
It is good to see you finally, like for the second time, right? Face to face. And okay, I need to adjust my hair because your hair looks really good. Ophelia, thanks for saying yes. Thank you so much for saying yes. Thanks for being here. Hi, Louis. Louis says, hi, Malar and Ophelia. Happy Friday. It is going to be a happy Friday because we are going to be educated on sex by Ophelia. So, Ophelia, tell us a little bit about you before you started, bringing about awareness in sex education. So, I know you're an audiologist, right? You're the first or the only audiologist I know. And I want to tell you that after hearing you speak in Clubhouse, I always think that, when my aging mom has problems, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fly her to KK to see you because you're such a compassionate, awesome audiologist. Because I've heard all your stories as to how you deal with, especially the older patients and how empathetic you are, right? So tell us a little bit about your own journey as to a bit of what you are willing to divulge in terms of your background and how you became an audiologist.
Okay, so how I became an audiologist and how did I ended up being this rare species? Okay, my dad started it. He was not an audiologist. He was an audiometric technician. So he was a medical assistant in the government hospital in KK, and he was attached to the ear, nose, and throat specialist department. And at that time, there were no hearing aid centers in Kota Kinabalu. Well, in Sabah, in fact. So he thought, okay, he was so courageous. He left and took an early retirement at the age of 35. Left the government. Yeah, left the government and started this business. And everybody at that time, of course, when you're not when you're not certain, that fear is there. So he was very courageous. and I've always saw my dad as that idol. I everything about him I admired. I wanted to grow up to be my father. uh,
I'm
so
jealous
when
of you.
so when he he set up the business and things like that. When I was 16, I said, okay, this is it. The path is I'm going to become an audiologist, and how it all started lah. So I already wanted to become an audiologist very, very young, but the decision to be wanting to become an audiologist was set at the age of 16. And he sent me to study. I came back, and a lot of people asked, why don't you stay in Australia? Australia is a good country, better life, better, everything is better there. But I said, um, one thing that I came back because of the family business, but I wasn't pressured into taking up the family business. But in my head and in my mind, if I don't serve my own people, then who is going to save my own people? That's my biggest motivation, Lamalar. Not because I was born with a silver spoon, but my heart is always with my people.
Oh, that's why you run WhatsApp Sabah.
Yeah, that's right. That's one
So
of the
maybe
reasons.
maybe now is the time to also just introduce people who are not on Clubhouse. There's an audio app called Clubhouse. Download it. And Ophelia has started what we call a movement called WhatsApp Sabah. So tell us, why did you start WhatsApp Sabah, since we're on the topic?
Okay, I started WhatsApp Sabah because Sabahans generally are very shy and not vocal. So I'm not a good representation of Sabahan. So when you meet me and say, oh yeah, Sabahan, they can speak well, and all. No, 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 not all of them are. So coming from a public speaking background, because I've been in Toastmasters for over a decade, I also felt that, okay, let's give this platform to Sabahans to speak. Just don't be a keyboard warrior. Practice on Clubhouse, and thank God for the pandemic, and thank God for Clubhouse.
Nice,
I
nice,
took that opportunity to
nice,
give Sabahans that opportunity to speak up on
nice,
Clubhouse.
nice. And why do you think it's important to speak up, Ophelia?
Very important to speak up, because you don't want to be, you just need to say what you need to say, right? What annoys me is when people go behind and start texting and say, I'm not satisfied with this, and people express in a different way. I feel that whenever there's any dissatisfaction, when we want to express, let us express it well and express it to the correct channel. We're not expressing it in a proper way lah. So that's why I felt that perfect WhatsApp Sabah on Clubhouse would be a platform where we really get to train to speak properly. I always remind my moderators, hey, remember, okay, make Sabah proud. Don't embarrass Sabah whenever you speak.
But I must tell you, I train for a living for like 20 years. But Clubhouse actually trained me to speak better, because you need to think better to speak better. So all those who want to practice speaking, now you go into WhatsApp Sabah, or you come to any of our rooms run by Momentum. But let's move on. That was an ad. I'm just going to say hello to two of my friends, three of my friends. You met Louis just now. Elizabeth is another friend who always supports me in all the work that I do. She shows up every Friday. So these three musketeers show up every Friday to support me, and I'm very grateful. And of course, there's Gerald. Good afternoon, Malar, Ophelia. He's excited by the topic. So, Gerald, I don't know whether this is the sex education you're looking for. You might be disappointed, but anyway, we'll see. And a very important one. A very important one, yes. Exciting. You can tell us afterwards, yeah, Gerald. So, Ophelia, so you're an audiologist, and I'm now, very curious to know more about your father, but I won't divert, right? How did because I love what you said about how your father is your hero, right? So did you become an audiologist because you wanted to make your dad happy? I know you said no pressure. So what about what your father was doing that made you say, I'm going to be an audiologist?
My dad is a person, you know, he doesn't speak much. He's a total opposite of me. This chatty character comes from my late mother. So what's amazing about my dad is that he doesn't stress out. So it is always everything is, oh, he's very calm and grounded. That's where I got that traits from. He's calm, grounded. He knows what he wants to do. There's no stress and there's no need to stress out if you cannot change anything. So I grew up seeing that, okay lah, maybe being audiologist, no stress. So I thought, okay, maybe this job, no stress at all. So that's how I actually ended up,
So
being.
tell me, now that you're an audiologist, is there any truth to being an audiologist is not stressful? Is that true? Is it a myth or a fact?
Well, I love doing this, right? I love doing it. I see other audiologists who complain about their job and say, oh, yeah, this old person just doesn't want to listen to me and things like that. But I say, it's a joy. I enjoy speaking to older people, and their kids will tell me, well, you're very patient now with your patients. I say, well, yeah, it's a fun thing lah. It's not just with the older community, but also with kids. It's just um, interesting and it's fun to be with people.
You've given two extremes, right? Kids on one hand, it's like looking after children and looking after aged people can be two different experiences, but you seem to be able to, being happy with it, right? Now, Nate has come on, said, I had the privilege to learn with Ophelia. From Toasties moments to Clubhouse, blessed to know you. Keep inspiring Sabahan, he said. But no lah, Nate, she's not just going to inspire Sabahan, she's inspiring us in Semenanjung also. You're coming over. So, Ophelia, you are already happy. You have an established business with your family. You go and join your family business. Then why you sangat menyibuk nak buat sex education lah? Okay. Tell us your interest and transition into sex education.
Yes, okay. So after I graduated, when was that? 2010, I graduated. I came back from Australia. I came back. I didn't have any friends in KK. My friends were all over the world, not back in KK. The nearest was in KL. So I didn't know what to do. I cannot sit down still, I'm like Nini Chong, the founder of Womentum. I just cannot. So I just wanted to do something. So NGO was the thing that the first organization that I joined was the Swepatos Masters Club, and that's when I really enjoyed, serving the community. But to make my story shorter, I'm aware that I'm on a Facebook Live. I'm aware, and I don't have all the time in the world to story. But how I ended up being a sex education trainer was because I have always liked and enjoyed training and teaching. And, like I mentioned earlier, my strength is in my communication with children and also older people. Well, actually, everybody lah. So to marry these two, to teach and to be teaching girls was something which I enjoyed. Plus the topics, we don't talk about sex education much. But I grew up in a medical environment where there's no shame, no shy talking about sexual health in general. So, and I thought, many of my friends were a little bit shy when we were talking about sex. Even in Form 3, I remember that one of my classmates were very disappointed to find out that her parents have to have sex to have her. So that's how I realized that sex education is a taboo subject in the Asian community, and not many people are okay with it. But I was very comfortable with it, and that was a subject that I was willing to take, because not many people are willing to do it. Why compete with other trainers who can talk about the same thing? So also, maybe I am very used to being the only one. You know what I mean? Like, I'm the only Ophelia that people know. I'm the
Mm,
only audiologist that people know.
mm.
I'm the only person with this mixture of heritage that people know. So I'm used to being that only person doing it. So that only person doing, well, not the only person, but that one person who is willing to take up that role to teach little girls about sex education. That's how I end up being a sex ed trainer, Malar.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you for the story. So I was a little bit distracted because we've been kicked out of LinkedIn. So that's what I realized. So I was
Oh,
just trying to sort that out. So if you saw me a little bit distracted, I wanted to just make sure that LinkedIn people know that they can come through YouTube. So we're just getting that done. Facebook is good, YouTube is good. Yeah, sorry. LinkedIn has been, or Streamia and LinkedIn, I think have been having lovers quarrel in the last 2 weeks. So hopefully they'll be happy. But let's go on with that. So so it's very interesting. I like what you said about how you found, for you grew up in a household that's normal, that talks about sex education, and then you met people who one cannot talk about it. Number two is it's not spoken in the household. Number three, when children can't accept that the parents had to have sex before they had them. So that's how I think my younger daughter is that way now. She's 12. And so she wants to ask me questions about sex, but she doesn't want to accept that, this is how kids are made. So it's very cute. I think they all go through the phase, but hopefully it's not permanent, right? But what made you interested in sex education for girls and not sex education in general?
because the organization that I'm in,
Mhm.
Seroptimis International, Kota Kinabalu. Seroptimis International is a women organization. How I end up being in all this women organization was because I was in a convent school.
Right.
I'm very comfortable being around women. For many years, I was in primary school, secondary school in St. Francis Convent, and then going into the women NGO, SWEPA first, and then SIKK. Uh, and at that time, the trainer, who is Siti Aisha, the creator of the sex education that we do. So Siti Aisha came to KK to train the members of SIKK. And that's how we ended up being a trainer for girls only, not because we tried to discriminate, but because the subject and the training came from a women focused NGO. Of course, along the way, teachers and parents say, can you also talk to our boys? And that's how we evolved a little bit, and we started engaging male trainers to talk a little bit about boys. Eventually people say, why do you only want to talk to girls? Can you talk to the secondary school girls also? Because some of them have already began sexually active. Can you talk to them about,
Secondary school sexually active.
yeah? So surprise, but girls nowadays, they start exploring at the age of 13, 14, by 15, by 17 nowadays.
We are experienced by 17. We have had enough experience. So you're saying so you did mention this, that the average age for being sexually active in Malaysia it's averaging at 13 years old, is what you're saying.
Yeah. 10 years ago, there was an article. 10 years ago, it was 15. And just in 2017, the statistics from the family planning, they found that children, well, we call them children, right? 13. They start at 13. That's the average age.
What's the do you by any chance have the percentage? So when they say average 13, right? So if I look at 13-year-olds, how many percent of 13-year-olds might be sexually active of all the 13-year-olds? Any
There's
idea?
no stats on that. Yeah.
Average. Because if I'm 13 and I'm sexually active, I may not tell that I'm sexually active.
That's
Because, yeah, I'll get kicked by my family. Is there an average age for the boys that you know of from the statistics?
No, the statistics were very, very basic. It was just the age, they didn't say whether it was boys or girls. So the statistics that come when it comes to sex ed in Malaysia, a lot of them come from PDRM. And it comes from the reporting, right? So incestuous relationship, rape, and things like that, underage sexual relationship. Most of the statistics come from PDRM.
Okay, so I mean, if PDRM is giving you these statistics, then the numbers are actually much more, right? Because what we're getting to is the story where it started, and the starting point could have been 30, but we're talking about all the other kids out there who don't get into trouble or don't get caught, right? Uh, and those numbers are going unnoticed, which is why if parents are watching this, it's really important for us to know what really is happening, right? Because I realize as a parent, and an old-fashioned parent actually, we cannot protect our children from exposure anymore because of internet. I mean, even if you put all the filters up for them, if you try and get educated, your children are always ahead of you. So one of those things that I am like learning is that how to have these conversations, which are really challenging for me. I can have it with other people's children. My own children, I have a problem. My friends' children all spoke to me, but I cannot speak to. I have difficulty speaking to my kids, right? But I realize it's important. I need to grow because and I need to stay open because what I thought was relevant, value centric, and whatever for me may not work because my children are living in a different time. Their exposure is actually different. So, how long have you been doing this, Ophelia?
Since 2015, so that would be 7 years now. Yeah, I cannot wait for the 1st of April, for the borders to open, and when we are able to go back to schools and actually meet, just looking at the photos, just passing you the photos of what our activities, how we were just sitting amongst a school of girls. That's just something which I really, really wanna. I'm looking forward to that lah.
Nice, nice. Yeah, we'll share some of the things that you've given us, but let's go into in the last 7 years when you've done this sex education work with children, right? So number one, what are some observations? What would have you gathered about what our kids either don't know and should know, or they know the wrong things? So what are some things that has surprised you and kept you on this path of having to do this work?
So we've done these programs in different schools. You've got the urban school who, of course, they know a lot of stuff. So when you tell them, they give you that face where, yeah, I know whatever that you want to tell me, auntie. And we've got people who are in the suburban areas where they are very open to this information. But generally, kids are very excited. When you're talking about primary school kids, of course, when we go to schools, it's not just a 1 day program. We have to go to the school several times. Once the trust is there, and once they're open and they want to ask you questions and things like that. But most of the time, these kids are very curious. So when you tell them something, they go like, hey, they're very giggly, uh, because they know that my teacher is never going to tell me this kind of things, but this auntie who comes from Seroptimis International talks about these things which my mother, my father, and teacher don't want to talk about. So they're actually very excited. That's the observation. And also, we've had a dad that came in to the school the next day and say, you know what, I'm very thankful that you all came and talked to my daughter about this. She was very empowered. She came home and she started talking about it comfortably to her brother and also to her father. So that was an empowering story.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Oh, nice. Beautiful story. Yeah, my second daughter, whenever she gets her period, she looks for her father.
That's cute.
So, mommy feeling a little left out, but never mind. But I think it's a good story. It's a very good story. Credit to the daughter and the father. And I think it had a lot to do with one the basic sex education knowledge that she got from school and the conversation, right? So you told me that when you do it for girls, young girls, I'm assuming primary school girls, that they are excited.
Mm.
What are they excited about?
They're excited about everything.
tell,
They're
tell us some juicy pieces so that we can laugh with you. Come on.
you know the icebreaker activities. Well, not icebreaker activity, but the ice breaking question that I usually ask these girls is how many holes do you think you have down there? And they go like two and one, and then when I actually say, girls have three holes, and they go like, so that just breaks the ice.
Oh,
Usually,
as,
yeah, and yeah, so
mm.
I have to explain to them that the middle hole is for what, and they go like, oh, all this while we thought babies come from the same way as where the urine comes out from. So it's that kind of things that they don't know. They don't learn this, and parents don't ask kids this kind of things. They don't go like, how many holes do you have? What do you know about?
I will go and ask my daughters today. They're going to hate me. But let me ask you this, right? You said parents don't tell. My question is, do you think parents know?
You see, we can't generalize. We can't generalize.
Yes.
You'd be surprised that when Seroptimis went to a rural place for our water project, so we spoke to the ladies, and these are older ladies. We're talking about 40 and above, 40 to 60-year-old ladies. We're just talking to them about hygiene and women hygiene. What do you do with your sanitary pads and things like that? What do you do with women hygiene when you come from a place with very limited water supply? So we were just talking about what we used to train to these younger girls, right? So this same information we talked to the 40 to 60-year-old women, and one of them came and asked and whispered and said, I didn't, I don't have period anymore. And is that normal? So when we talk to girls about, when you go through puberty, it's normal to start bleeding, but we don't tell people that eventually you will stop and go through menopause. And these older ladies do not know that. And they go like, and after we told her that it's normal and it's called menopause, and she went on to ask, is it okay that my husband is with me bersama saya, meaning having sexual intercourse? And she was worried, for years and years and years after she stopped period, and where every time when her husband has sex with her, she'll be afraid because
Oh,
she thought it was a penyakit. Why am I not bleeding anymore? And is it okay that I'm not bleeding anymore, that my husband is having sex with me? So, sometimes you know, sometimes you think you know, but some people just don't know.
so she thought the penyakit is with her. That she
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So she thought she had a disease because she stopped datang bulan, having period, and that fear is amplified with the fact that her husband still have sex with her. So she was very afraid, very very afraid.
I'm curious to ask her whether she was afraid for herself or for her husband. Okay, out of context, that's why my brain is truly worried for you, for your husband. But that doesn't matter. Gerald says sex education should be mandatory, comprehensive, medically accurate, and taught throughout students' school years, just like okay, today we know we have three holes. Okay, for those who didn't know, today you get three. Right, just like the brains we talked about. When they come into my class, they got one brain. When they go back, they got three brains. So now how many holes you came into the program doesn't matter, women, but we all have three holes. Moving on. So kids are excited to giving them, like what Gerald says, medically accurate information about the body, which I think rightfully we should learn in school,
Mm.
right?
Do you know that there is actually a subject under the Pendidikan Jasmani dan Kesihatan in school that talks about all these.
Okay.
But because this topic is so taboo that teachers would usually just sometimes skip the whole topic and not talk about it, or sometimes teachers would just do it very brief without even going deeper into the topics, because teachers are also afraid, because with very conservative parents, they would come to school and say, you're a teacher, you shouldn't be teaching my kids this. What are you teaching my kids in school?
But I'm
You
just
should-
following the syllabus. Okay, I need to talk to the teachers of how to talk to the parents who tell them not to follow the syllabus. But yeah, but we understand what you're saying. So what you're saying is that it is in the syllabus when we may not be covering it, we may not be giving it fair coverage, both in terms of the difficulty in teaching it as is, because I think you guys are trained differently, right? And
Yeah.
what you seem to be doing is that in fact, I want to attend your program. What you seem to be doing is that you seem to be putting it in perspective, right? Because the word sex itself is a taboo.
Yeah.
And very much like what you said in your introductory video, sex is associated very much to only reproduction sometimes, or pleasure sometimes. But there's the whole system that you're talking about, and sexual activity is just part of sex education.
That's
All right.
right.
And it's well, I'm glad you guys are doing sex education for girls, because girls are the only one who are capable of getting pregnant, but that's not that. Now, so when you do, girls get excited. Now, when you work with teenage girls, because you go into secondary schools, are the reactions the same? Tell us a little bit about what you've observed because younger girls, because they're not exposed and they're still very data, right? It's very data, right?
Yeah.
Like the way you grow up, it's a fact about being human, right? By the time you get into secondary school, you're having crushes, you like boys, and you like all sorts of stuff. And when that happens, and depending on also the wrong information they've got about sex and the family environment. So, what is a typical reaction? I mean, we're talking generally about when you go into secondary schools.
Secondary school girls are very challenging. Not just girls, but we've also had programs with boys, because we have had projects, collaborative projects with Befrienders Kota Kinabalu, where they would do a wholesome activity, including parents. So we would take the teenager part. So we would usually see boys and girls, but in schools with the teenage girls and of course boys, it's very difficult to penetrate to their reaction and their feeling and their thoughts. With little kids, they're giggling, so that they're curious, they want to know more, they're receptive. With teenagers, you get a poker face, so you don't know whether they like it, you don't know whether they're hating you just don't know. It's very difficult to read. But once you gain trust, so what we usually do is we don't say, okay, anybody has any questions, put up your hand, because you'll never get questions by doing that way. We would have the ask me box, so we would pass around box, and they would write their question and put it into the box, and then they would be free to ask any questions without having to even write their name.
Nice.
So the questions that we usually get, right? So with this poker face that we see, but the questions are more on how to prevent pregnancy. So
Okay.
that these questions that would come from people who are already sexually active, right? So is it true that when I makan pineapple, memang tak jadi? Questions like that. Is it true that if the withdrawal method works in preventing pregnancy. So we get a lot of questions from teenagers about more questions that directed into pregnancy
Not
prevention.
getting pregnant, not getting pregnant. So they are sexually active. So I want to have sex, but I want to make sure I don't get pregnant. I'm glad they at least know that they don't want to get pregnant before they're ready. So tell us, if you can tell us, because this is such an important conversation. I think you brought that question up. Tell us what are some, what are the misconceptions that you see young people have due to their lack of sex education. So one is, if I eat pineapple, can I prevent pregnancy? Right?
Mm,
Because there is that myth that you can get an abortion if you eat pineapple. At least
mm.
in my community. So if you're pregnant or you've a delayed period, they'll say take a lot of pineapple; it'll all come out, right? So yeah. And some children don't come out and they end up being accidents, right? Okay, so that's one. The other one is withdrawal. What are the other questions that if you can just remember and tell us? Because I think most people who are listening are adults, right? I think this
Yeah.
is for us to perhaps think about what our kids may have assumed wrongly and
Mm.
make their choices based on these assumptions.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions that you can share with us?
Question, not a question, but a statement which I found shocking. And I thought, oh my gosh, this of course comes from us adults telling our kids. Um, it's very common for us to say you'll get kids after you kawin. We use the word marriage.
Get married to have children. That's
Yes,
what I thought.
yeah. So we are being taught that way. Uh, Later, when you kawin, you'll be able to have sex.
Okay.
Later, when you kawin, you will become mother. Later, after sekolah, when you finish SPM, you can kawin because it's an adult thing, right? So, what happens when we tell this kind of statements to teenagers or to our children? So, we've had this a story of the boy. The girl was afraid. I don't want to get pregnant by having sex with you, and they were 13. Both of them were 13. Boy said, "It's okay. You're not gonna get pregnant because we are not married." Dangerous, right? So think about how we want to educate our kids. So they were so confident, and the girl like, "Oh, really?" He said, "Yeah, we're not gonna get you're not gonna get pregnant because we're not married." So they just go on lah, do whatever, and very confidently have sex. So this is some of the misinformation that
Okay.
kids get.
Some things. So I mean, I understand this because I think at least in my growing years, even now we talk about, we don't say when you have sex you will become pregnant or you could become pregnant. We use the word sleep together.
Yeah.
Okay, and for children, sleeping means just sleeping. For us, sleeping means something else. So, what are some things that you think, as parents, we may not be sending our children to your classes. I'll be on the lookout for these classes for my kids, honestly. But we may not know, and if we're having conversations at home, right? What are some things that you think, as parents, we can set right? What are the things that we need to say correctly? So we need to call the body parts correctly. So going,
Mm-hmm.
I need to look at my biology books and look at body parts. We know the three holes for the girls, right? So it's body parts. And you did share a website with us where we can actually go and learn some of these, which I think is excellent. We'll put it up shortly, yeah, people who are listening. Now, so tell us, as parents, what would your advice be to parents who are listening? What are some things that we can set right with our children from the time they're born and as they're growing up?
The information on the internet is vast. So don't ever say, I don't know what to tell my kids. The information is there. The Malaysian website under LPPKN, which you guys are gonna load later, under LPPKN. So one of the
As you're talking, we will just share the slides so that people can see. Yeah. Okay.
yes,
So keep
yeah.
talking.
Right. So with the LPPKN website, we are always sometimes also very cautious about what information we tell um, children. We also want to protect ourselves and the organization, right? We don't want to have parents coming and say, "What are you telling my kids?" But this gives me comfort, knowing that LPPKN,
Mm-hmm.
under the Ministry of Women and the Community, has a very comprehensive information um, about sex education. They even have the part about gender. How people can be attracted to the same sex. So we were thinking,
Oh.
okay, if LPPKN can offer this information, I'm safe, because whatever the government put, I'm safe. So if you're a parent and you're thinking where to start, go to the LPPKN website under family and under
We're putting the site in here, so we'll put it in comments, so don't worry. So this is the
yeah,
site that's actually appearing. We'll also put it in the comments for people to
yeah.
go. So just now the site that we saw is what you can actually learn from the site. So fantastic. But tell me something, right? While we've put up the site here, let me ask you. So what? So as parents, we can go and look at this website and talk to our children about things that we haven't spoken about, right? What are some pushbacks that you get from parents in your sex education classes?
So the question that we ask parents is, who should do this, mommy or daddy?
Hmm.
Father will usually say, mama lah,
Hmm.
mommy lah, mommy talk to the kids about sex ed, because,
Hmm.
well, mothers do everything, right?
Hmm.
So, and also another setback is when people want to tell us as trainers and say, can you please tell my kids? Can you just tell the kids? Just tell them lah. Don't have sex. When you have sex before you kawin, you're gonna go to hell. So very important is to, I know, right? You have to meet heaven before you go to hell, right, Malar?
You I want to go to heaven. That's why I'm having sex, and you're talking about hell. It doesn't make sense. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. So these kind of things where we have to be honest with ourselves. It's 2022. If kids don't get the information from you, they are going to get the information from the internet. We must accept that fact. And
Yeah.
we also have to put religion and separate it. Don't take the convenience of, you'll go to hell, you're going to suffer when you die, but as long as I'm on earth,
I will
then
have enjoy the pleasure.
I'll enjoy the pleasure, right? Because let's just do that. Like, it's the same thing like how you tell Morocco is no good, don't take too much sugar and things like that. People are aware lah. They know they're gonna get cancer when they smoke too much. People know that they're gonna get obese if they don't look after their diet and things like that. It's the same thing like us telling our children, abstain from sex. Don't don't do it. Don't do it. You wait until you're married and things like that. But we have to accept the fact that education is power. It we are also very afraid of sometimes, parents thinking that when you introduce sex education, you're encouraging the kids to have sex. It's not. You have to empower by educating them.
Do you have any evidence of feedback that by by sex education, children might actually delay uh, their experience to have sex?
There is not Malaysian stats though,
Okay,
not the
okay.
Malaysian stats, but I think this was done under the UK government, where they found that when these kids are empowered, it's easier for them to abstain. So you give them this very strong foundation of empowering them and telling them not to start sexual relationship at the young age. You tell them all that, and they just don't, abstaining is easier than doing it and try to not do it, because once you have felt it, it's not easy to go back. Yeah.
Mm. And you're saying that do this via education. So what I'm hearing from you is that to help to educate children so that they know that every choice that they make comes with consequences, i.e., responsibility and accountability. You're
Yes.
accountable, not just about getting pregnant, but you are accountable for your health, for your safety. So there's so much that goes into the sex education, not just about the act of having sex and having children, but there's so much on health and safety that is involved, right? And
Yes.
I think while it's very good we started off with the girls, it's really important that we do it with the boys, because sometimes the boys also get the wrong information, like the 13-year-old boy who probably thought I can have sex, but the girl won't get pregnant because we're not married, right? And it could have been a belief, right? As silly as it sounds for people who have the information, but that's a truth that some kids might actually live with, because I've read some of these stories in teenage pregnancies, right? So I'm going to ask you a question that Hannah Wong Abdullah has popped up. She says that please share with the audience, parents, how they might this is International Women's Day, break their own bias, and what is one way to start the birds and the bees conversation as soon as parents realize they should have the conversation. I think Hannah, what's her name? Ophelia actually said, when you introduce body parts to your children, your eyes, your nose, so cute and all of that, tell them what are all their body parts. You did say don't give it nicknames like cookies, right? I thought that was very funny. So I thought that was a good. I found that really very useful. But is there anything else you want to add on to this question, Ophelia?
I just want to say that Hannah is the immediate past president for Seroptomis International Kinabalu. So thank you, Hannah, very much for that question. A very long one. So I've got to digest this question. Please share with the audience how they might break their own biases. Yeah. It comes with empowering ourselves as parents. When you're not confident, how are you going to empower your kids, right? Their own biases, like how when teenage pregnancy happens, it's always the girl's fault. It's never the boy's fault.
Of course.
It's always the girl's fault.
Well, even when a married woman gets pregnant, when they have children, they say they've stopped having children, and then accidents happen, all right, you will find the women, the mother-in-laws, will go after the wife and say, why didn't you do something about it, right? You don't have children, it's your problem. You have more children, it's your problem, right? You get pregnant, it's your problem. If you don't get pregnant, it's your problem. If you get a male and you want a female, it's your problem too.
Yeah, they don't know that the gender of the anak is determined by the male sperm.
No, but even people who have studied science go back to the original programming. So I mean, it's interesting. I didn't have children for 8 years, right? So it's very interesting. So in the years I was childless, people never go and ask my husband, how come you're not having children, right? They come and ask me. And now what's interesting, even when I went to see doctors, right, they never test the men first. They always test the women to say what's wrong with you first. If we know you're not wrong, then we'll test your husband. Hello, can you not do it together?
Yes.
So there is, for me, even a biasness because of a belief that let's check the women first. I mean, I was not so clever that time, so I just followed the system and got damaged in the system quite a bit. So it's the women who are, and that's exactly break the bias that we are talking about, that sex education has to be equal for both the gender or all the genders.
Yes.
Right? And you need to differentiate facts, i.e. science, versus beliefs and values and whatever not. Because when you do this separately, and as the children grow up, they will know how to bring it together, because for us to combine that together, we need to be able to have a conversation. But you cannot have conversation based on belief that you're going to go to hell,
Mm-hmm.
right? And without the data is what I'm hearing you say, we need to do both, right? Right. Now, how do you think, because we are in the International Women's Day month, right? And when we talk about equality or break the bias, right? I'm a very strong believer that you can't empower the women without empowering the men. Whenever we empower the women in a particular way, so if you're doing sex education for the girls, the boys now also need to be empowered because they need to deal. So if girls get into Me Too movement and boys don't know what Me Too movement means, and if they don't know what consensus are, what consensus are not, right? We're still going to have trouble, right? Different
Yes.
type of trouble, but it's going to be trouble. How do you think sex education, right, will help us break the bias as to get us to feel and act like equals?
The how is the sex education going to break the bias is, oh my goodness, we also have to be aware that simple things like going back to I got three holes, you got two holes kind of thing, right? So if you don't know biology, then simple things like blaming the woman that she's carrying a boy and not a girl, or a girl and not a boy, that's always blaming and putting a blame on a woman. So we have to do this. We have got to go back to basics.
Right.
um Everything, I think, in the sexual context or sex education, women always get the blame. So if we it takes two to tango. It's female male having sexual intercourse. If pregnancy happen, it's not the woman's fault only. uh yeah, so that's how we break the bias lah, Malar.
I wanted to say it's not even a fault to have sex, but it is a fault when we have irresponsible sex.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's right.
and I think that's really what we're trying to do, not to put in systems and structures. We put in system and structures because there are negative impact. And now what we're trying to do is by educating, we hope we don't have to impose the systems and structures, but rather people make their choices and people know the consequences of choices and be responsible
Mm.
for themselves, right? Now, before we end, I'm very curious, right? So you would have spoken to women of different walks of life, men and women of different walks of life, right? But I'm talking about adult women, educated adult women, right? Because I've spoken to educated adult women who still feel upset that they can't bear a particular gender, right? Or that even the fact that they are going for fertility treatment and the husband is not involved. I've dealt with these cases because I tell my story and they'll come and tell me, right? So with the adults, we're not even talking about whether you want to have sex or not, right? But because they lack sex education, like we talk about consensus, we talk about what are my rights as a woman to say yes and to say no, right? So in Clubhouse, I heard this in Clubhouse actually. I was kind of surprised, right, when one guy said, I told my girlfriend or sex partner that I don't use condoms, right?
Mm.
So do you do all of this as part of sex education in what you do, as to tell actually what you can ask for, what you cannot ask for, what are your rights? So tell us something about what you do as to in terms of the content, because we
Yeah.
want to contact you. Yeah.
Yeah, so we start with biology, the parts, how do you get pregnant, the menstrual cycle, what is not normal and what is normal, when to see a doctor, and then we go on with safety. Safety is also one topic. Just going back to the cookie part of, referring your private part as cookie. There's a story of not here in Malaysia, but it happened overseas, where the young girl went to school and told her teacher, "My uncle licked my cookie." And what she meant was the uncle performed oral sex on her, and so the teacher said to the girl, "So later when you go back, you lick his cookie back lah." So can you imagine this totally disengaged context, right? When it comes to safety, it is so important to teach the kids about the proper parts of the body. So
Yeah.
and also the story of how they use bunga to refer to the private part, and it happened here in Malaysia. They say, jiran kita kacau bunga kita lah, and then after that the mother said, "Tak apalah, later kita tanam lagi bunga tu." And she was actually referring to the neighbor, molesting her.
Mm, mm.
So safety is also a big topic under sex education. So very, very important. Consent, relationships also very important. Like, you don't need to get into a relationship to be happy. When you're not happy, you're not happy.
Really?
Yeah, a lot of people think that, oh, I'm sad, I'm broken, I get into a relationship in hopes that it's going to be better. Or sometimes people get into a very toxic relationship thinking that, oh, this is love. When you're bitten by your partner, when you're abused by your partner, oh, that's him just loving me. All this misconception about
You know,
relationships.
what I'm thinking is, you said, people think getting into a relationship, you become happy or happier. I don't know. I may be happy and not happy, right? But getting into a relationship also takes away your happiness. We need to look at both opposites, but anyway, that's a different story. So safety and all of that you handle. And so you did say Soroptimist you do this training via Soroptimist, and we'll put down the site, and we'll show you the site too shortly. I think Kirtana will actually put up while I'm talking to Ophelia now. So Soroptimist, and you can contact Soroptimist for this training if you want to have this training in your school or in groups where you're gathering girls, I suppose, right? And boys, girls and boys. So now you do for girls and boys, right, Ophelia?
Yeah, that's right. Both girls and boys.
So that's Soroptimist International KK. We'll put the Facebook in the comments. So this is if you're in KK, and if you're in Malaysia, this part of the world, KL, there's one for KL which we will also put up so that you know who to contact. So of course, in KK you contact. That's Hannah. No, that's not Hannah. You contact Ophelia for this to run sessions in the groups that you want. And there's a website under LPP that we put up just now. If you want to, as a parent, as an adult, if you yourself want to learn and then you want to share with your children before you send for these programs, you can do that. Are you guys running this online now, or is it still face to face?
We, as much as we like to do face to face, we had to do online during the pandemic. But we are very much looking forward to doing it physically again.
Nice.
Because the trust just becomes
Yeah.
a little bit, you build trust quicker when you're face to face. Yeah.
I also think one of the taboos about sex education is the idea of shame. So generally, in our community, there's a lot of topics that goes unshamed, right? And sex is definitely a big part of shame. I mean, and we're not talking about sexual acts, but anything to do with sex, gender, it's just like you won't even see the guys in the bra section because the guys go elsewhere when the girls are buying bras, for example, right? So one of those things we do for my son is that we educate him by taking him with us when we buy bras. So he'll make a very good boyfriend and husband in the future. Right? Because it is to take away the discomfort and make it feel normal. I think we need to normalize a lot of human behaviors, and and that's what we are actually trying to do with sex education, to normalize that this is part of being human, right? And if you know what it means to be part of human, you remove the shame from it because it's human. To be attracted is human, to want to have sex is human, to want and not have babies is human, and to believe that you are happy in a relationship is also human. But also to find out that you become unhappy in relationship is also human. Right? Okay. So, Ophelia, thank you very much for all the contact information that you've given us. Thank you for doing this for the community around you and for coming up here and sharing with us so that more people, awareness is created and we can make small right choices and decisions for ourselves and the people we care about. Now, before I get you into rapid fire, which is like 2-3 minutes, is there anything else you would like to leave the audience with?
Just don't wait too long, because in not studying and not pushing for sex education is only going to make things worse. Always remember that knowledge is empowering. We're empowering through knowledge, and that's not encouraging our kids to have sex. So when they're empowered, they will be empowered with the decision, whether or not they want to abstain or get into it. But if they want to get involved in sexual activity, they know what to do. So that's what I want to leave the audience with.
Nice, thank you. Oh, this is Hannah Wong. Sorry, Hannah Wong. I got confused between Hannah Halim and Hannah Wong. That's why when I saw the photo there, I got confused. Okay. Hannah Wong is from your part of the world. Hannah Halim is from our part.
Your part of the world, yeah.
Stuff like that. Okay, good. Thank you, Ophelia. It's been really, really good. I know there's a lot more that we need to do as usual. I like what I tell all other content experts. Let's do a podcast. But before that, can we do a quick rapid fire, darling?
Can.
Are you ready? Okay. Yes. So, our series is known as Being Whole, Being Me series. And of course, we are, our episode 46. Now, when we, so being whole, right? So finish this sentence, sex education makes one become whole or being whole, right? Finish the sentence.
Okay. Repeat that, Malar.
Okay. Sex education makes me whole by.
Sex education makes me whole by being empowered with knowledge.
With one of the most pleasurable acts of life. I'm adding the last one. Okay. Now, sex education makes me me, makes me authentic, makes me who I am, right? So sex education makes me me.
Sex education makes me who I am.
Nice.
Sex education makes me who I am.
Nice. Thank you. Now, if everyone has the right information through sex education, how do you see this breaking the bias? Everyone has the right information about sex through sex education. How would that break the bias and bring about equality?
It will, how would I say this? We will stop the blaming. It's so when you're empowered with all this knowledge, you will stop the pointing finger, and be responsible in whatever that you decide. So you don't want to be blaming people for their faults and things like that. So
nice, and that's empowerment, right? Empowering ourselves with responsibility. Last one. I am Ophelia Domingo, and I make a difference by doing sex education, right? So tell me, when as you're running this sessions, right, in sex education, how do you think you're making a difference? So just tell us how you make a difference, because you're doing something that's really important on a voluntary basis. I'm sure you're leaving footprints in their hearts, right? So how do you think sex education, through sex education, you're making a difference? Ophelia.
I'm making a difference by, of course, again, empowering through education. When a person knows or are empowered, they will be able to make a sound decision.
Nice. Thank you very much. And by making sound decisions, how are we going to make this world a better place, darling?
It's always very difficult with you, Malar. I hate this. Also, in a clubhouse, you make me sweat.
Really? Yeah. Okay. Sorry. This is not Clubhouse, but I mean, really, because if to do this for 7 years, it must mean something to you, right?
Mm.
Yeah. So yeah, you don't have to complete the sentence. I don't want you to sweat. So you can either choose complete or you can say goodbye. What's your choice?
Complete lah, complete. Let's just complete it. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, but you've got to repeat that one more time because I forgot what was the sentence.
How would the world be a better place?
How would the world be a better place? It will lead to equality and understanding.
Nice. You see, I just needed you to say it because when I say, nobody will listen. They want to hear it from Ophelia Domingo. He's the one who's doing this. So, Ophelia, thank you very much. Happy International Women's Day. Thank you for contributing to make our community a better place to live. Helping us to co-create the future that we want through empowerment so that we can be free to be ourselves and start being whole. So thank you. Wishing you all the best. As I've told you, Ophelia is an audiologist, and if you have any problems with your hearing, it's worth going for a holiday to KK just to meet Ophelia. Right? Otherwise, go and join Clubhouse. She also answers questions for free, and she's really one of the most intelligent audiologists that I've met. I'm not biased when I say that because I've heard Ophelia speak with other global experts, and she makes me really, really proud as a Malaysian. So Ophelia, thank you. Wishing you all the best. I'll catch up with you again. Thanks, and you have a great weekend ahead and stay safe.
Thank you, everybody, for watching, and thank you, Malar.
All right, bye. So as we say bye to Ophelia, I hope you enjoyed the topic. Tell us what else you want to hear. I want to just thank Jero. He says, thank you, Ophelia. Please do more to educate not the young, but everyone, and teach parents how to break the barriers to educate their children. Jero, I'm very curious. Is it as exciting as you expected? So tell us in the comment if it was exciting. Hannah, thank you very much for joining us and asking us the questions. Elizabeth, again, thank you very much. With that, I hope it has been a fruitful lunchtime on a Friday. I wish everybody a great weekend. Continue to stay safe. And remember, you got one more thing you can do. Get educated about sex education. This is Malar from Hearts&Minds signing off for now. See you next week with an interesting guest who promises to put a smile, if not a laughter, in our heart. Thank you. So Gerald says, good session, but he didn't say exciting. See, I knew it wouldn't be exciting, but never mind. Continue to be safe until I see you next week. Bye.
My dad started this business in 1994. Initially, he had 3 departments. And in November last year, he took out one department, which is the hearing department, and we rebranded it into Ophelia Hearing Specialist. What I enjoy most about this job is to see the delighted faces and the joy when people get to hear again. That is the greatest joy I get.
Sex education starts from as early as when you tell your children, this is your eyes, this is your nose, this is your mouth. You also start with proper names for your body parts. That's
Yep.
how early it starts. So at what age do you start teaching your kids, you know, this is your eyes and nose and mouth? As soon as they can speak, right? The
Yep.
minute they know how to say their first word and things like that, you would teach them. That is how early we should start sex education. So we have to be also aware that sex education is a huge umbrella. And whenever people talk about sex education, they always immediately think about ovum, sperm penetration, intercourse, pregnancy, bam, there you go. It's not. It's way earlier. It's way earlier. So what if you want to tell your child this is your pee place, you know, make sure that you've got a proper name and it's not flower or cookie. Have a dedicated name for private parts as early as 1, 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.